Hello, team. Welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan NSB. This is Ukraine War Frontline update for the 10th of February 2024. I've just got off the back of an hour and a half live stream with Greg, who's a couple of doors down. We are in Ukraine presently. This is another live stream where I haven't been able to compile as many sources as I'd possibly like, but as a result, unfortunately, is more of a romp through the front line rather than a granular look at it. But there is some detail to be had. If you don't know what the lines on my map mean, please check out the screen at the moment. Here we have the front lines as according to the mapping sources we have. JR has done the frontline updating for me. Thanks again. He is an absolute ledge. Here we have some movement in a number of places on the northeastern axis from Kupiansk to Svatove-Kreminna, and it is challenging for the Ukrainians. There are some claims that the Russians have been fighting inside Sinkivka. Here we have Syriac maps making those claims there. Not sure that they're fully confirmed at the moment, but it wouldn't be implausible. This is their tweet from almost a day ago now, saying situation in northeastern front during the last days, the Russian army increased their control over the forest west of Sinkivka, and in the last hours, an attack was made from this direction. Taking advantage of natural protection, troops were able to capture a quarter of the village. That is a pretty big call there. I don't know whether that is the case. We shall see if the other mappers confirm this, but they have been certainly close to Sinkivka, increasingly so over the recent weeks. So, yeah, as I say, not implausible, could well have happened. Then, as we come further to the south, we have Avdiivka. I don't know if this is a case, as JR has said here, of a rollback, far more likely than a Ukrainian counterattack. This is something, as I keep saying, Syriac Maps does, which is make very big claims to successes in a given place, and then as information comes in subsequently, they roll it back, but don't particularly shout about that. Sometimes they couch it in terms of, oh, it appears that Ukrainians are in control and they've retaken it at some point in the last 2 months, rather than saying, yeah, we probably got it wrong initially. So bear that in mind when it comes to the Sinkivka claims. It could be very overconfident claiming from Syriac Maps. However, as I say, could well have happened in Sinkivka. They have been trying to take that for a long time, lost quite a lot of equipment in that area. Then some gains here further down the axis towards Novodyanye here, near to the well, I guess near to Makivka. Really, I was going to say the highway that that comes down from the P66 or R66 from Svatova to Kreminna, but actually I was getting confused with this grey line, which is the May the 30th. Lines, so before the Ukrainian summer counteroffensive, this is where the lines were, and you can see that the Russians have over time taken quite a large area of land. This kind of Avdiivka, Robotyne area, that Novoherivka there, where they took it, and then the Ukrainians took it back. Well, now they seem to be taking some land further to the south there, really trying to push on in a number of these places towards the Sherebets River here, and then eventually the Oskil River, which is what they'd like. Borova here might have been one of their targets some time ago. I don't know. Even with Ukraine's difficulties they face at the moment, with the lack of mobilized troops, with a lack of equipment in terms of artillery ammunition, I still think it's a step too far for the Russians to get all the way to Oskil. It's just, what happens when you don't provide Ukraine with what they need for 4 months. You're going to get to a point where they're running on empty, and I think the Russians are going to sense that now's their time, and you'll see these attacks now taking place up and down the front lines with as much as they can throw at it. The Russians themselves are on their knees, in my opinion, but I just think that they have the ability to be really officious with their troops and say, right, attack everywhere, even if they're exhausted and don't have the equipment themselves necessarily. Right, the Russians are making some gains in Bilohorivka. These are gains that have been confirmed by Andrew Perpetua and actually taken further than Syriac maps here by showing Russians in control of this whole kind of plant here. I forget what it is. It's not a filtration plant. It's more likely. Well, it could be. There's a lake there. It's more likely to be some kind of mining plant. Though this is a mining area. There's a quarry here. Anyway, the Russians appear to be very much in control of that now, which is a challenge for the Ukrainians, although this will be quite a difficult area for the Russians to take, given the topography, quite mountainous around here. And yeah, I've talked about that previously. We will go on to Bakhmut now, where there is some gains for the Russians and potential gains for the Ukrainians further north of Boronivka, northwest of there. Some tiny gains for the Ukrainians there, but other than that, Russians seem to have pushed back south of Boronivka towards Chaziv Yar, and this is something that I'm fairly sure has been happening as well. I think the Russians have had some success in the Klishchivka area and around here over the last 24 hours from some of the sources I've been having access to within Ukraine itself. So I can pretty much confirm that the Russians are pressuring very strongly in that area. If we go to the ISW Institute for the Study of War, they confirm the Bilohorivka claims there with some geolocation. So sorry to go back here. Active hostilities on the northern flank of Bakhmut. So that's where we are at the moment. Attack of the armed forces of the Russian Federation by armored vehicles and a motorized rifle unit near the Bakhmut-Chaziv highway. Landing of troops. Assault on the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine. Equipment of the armed forces of Ukraine damaged. Actually, so this is exactly where we're talking about. I'm not flipping back. I thought that was Bilohorivka, but no, we have a geolocation which is in the ISW in the Bakhmut area. So geolocated footage published on the 9th shows elements of the Russian VDV recently advancing in fields west of Bakhmut. Let's put that into Google Earth and see where the Russians are at. And that is, yep, exactly where we have seen the map increases by a deep stack map in the sort of yellowy orange and Surat maps in the red there. So that's the geolocation confirming that move there by the Russians. It is tough for the Ukrainians pretty much everywhere at the moment. Right, as we come further to the south, we come to Avdiivka, and everyone is probably fairly well aware that things are incredibly tough. I think you're seeing an operational withdrawal from Avdiivka. They basically, the Ukrainians would love to have kept hold of this past March 17th, the presidential election day in Russia, and the Russians really want this by March 17th. So Putin can say, "We've taken Avdiivka. We've been trying to take that since 2014. Check us out. Aren't we amazing? No, aren't I amazing? I am the supreme overlord of Russia, and therefore, well done for voting for me." I think that's what the intention is, and I think it's looking like they will get that. The Russians, they have the best part. Well, they have just over a month in order to do that, and I think it's looking incredibly precarious for the Ukrainians there. So, yeah, some major gains for the Russians in that northern area, and in the southern area past Tsarska Ochota, which swapped hands a couple of times, and then it now seems to be under Russian control. A few worrying sources here. This is one, Anastasia Vodienko, saying, I talked to the military about the situation in the section where the 52nd brigade works, battalion works, sorry. I can't and won't tell you the details, but I'm just going to panic right now. The lives and health of many soldiers depend on whether we manage to collect the slaves. I don't know if that's a dodgy translation or what she means by that. We have until March the 4th. Again, I don't know what she means by the timing there, but supposedly speaking to people in the know, things are looking very bad there. Again, I can confirm it's not looking good in Avdiivka from the sources I have in Ukraine. I can't really go into any more detail than that, other than things are looking pretty bleak there. Frontline report says Euromaidan press Russian forces have started fighting through Avdiivka block by block. Ukraine's new commander in chief, Alexander Syrsky, has to solve a very difficult problem in Avdiivka, where Russians recently entered the town from the north. And then here we have Suriyat maps saying, showing advances for a couple of days in a row. That these are pretty substantial advances coming right through the northern part of the town, looking like they're going to cut off the coke plants. Situation north of Avdiivka. In the last few hours, Russian army has made further advances in the city. Troops advance along Stepova and Persha Trevneva streets, forcing Ukrainian troops to withdraw from Donetsk beach, south of Avdiivsky Quarry. That's around here, talking about. From south, new Russian advance is also developing through Krystyakova and Harov streets to enter the railway station, located dozens of meters away from Russian soldiers. On the other hand, Russian forces advance beyond the railway, taking partial control of automobile depot, some warehouses still under the grey zone, as well as Timiryadyeva Street, and are heading towards the gas station on Industrialny Avenue, where the Ukrainian army has barricaded itself. Simultaneously, Russians have taken full control over the dachas south of the railway bridge and are attacking the Alta Group Limited Liability Company complex. Barely 300 meters remain before the Russians can cut the main artery of Avdiivka, previously under fire control. The next few hours could be decisive in the outcome of the battle, as Ukrainian troops were shelled at Khimik settlement trying to withdraw from Avdiivka through the fields to the west. It is to be expected that the withdrawal will accelerate from now on. Meanwhile, Ukrainian reinforcements appear to be heading to this front, possibly to the northern and southwestern flanks, in order to launch a counterattack to reduce the pressure on the troops of the city. I don't know whether, if that is happening, of course, take that all with a pinch of salt, but it seems pretty plausible. Whether the counterattack would be not to retake Avdiivka, but to alleviate the pressure on those that are trying to withdraw. It is also pretty horrific in terms of aviation bombs. The FAB 500 or bigger, or indeed smaller. You got the 250, the 500, the 1500 variants. There were apparently 50 hitting Avdiivka in the last 24 hours. So that is absolutely phenomenal, and not in a good way. It's all looking fairly scary there for the Ukrainians. And Rob Lee's saying, according to Deep State UA, so Deep State Maps, this is a relatively recent posting in the last half an hour. Russian forces have advanced further in northern Avdiivka, expanding their foothold across the railway line. That is pretty much what Suriyat Maps is saying, although it might not be as expansive as Suriyat Maps has claimed there. So that is not good news for the Ukrainians. I haven't got too much to add to that from what ISW says. Pretty much all there for you. If you want to check out ISW, they'll pretty much be confirming that. And indeed, we can go on to Novomykhailivka as we come further to the south. We pass Mariinka, come into Novomykhailivka here. You can see that there are some gains for the Russians into the east, all very much up to the eastern areas of the eastern streets of Novomykhailivka, and up a tree line to the south towards that. I think it's an industrial zone. You've got a cemetery. I think that's an industrial zone. I think this is agricultural further to the west. So you've got those three areas that initially they'd attacked up to. There were some claims from Suriyat Maps that the Russians had fully taken control of them. Then they were beaten back, and now it seems that they're coming again. They appear to be able to overcome massive attrition to take these places, a bit like Avdiivka. They're doing that with Novomykhailivka, and I think the idea is that you'll get a kind of a straightening off, a leveling off of the front line here. The Ukrainians are digging in behind here, and it could be that there's a more wide-scale withdrawal to much better defensive positions further behind. But all of that will be reflective of how difficult the Ukrainians are finding it without the equipment that they probably thought they were going to have. Again, it's not I'm trying to blame the Americans here. The whole world needs to come together. Europeans seem to be recognizing the problem. If you look at the rhetoric that's going on across Europe at the moment, it came from the Dutch today, the Dutch military, and also Olaf Scholz in Germany saying this is getting serious. Things are bad. Ukraine really need as much help as we can give them. Now, whether they can follow that rhetoric with tangible assets going to Ukraine, I don't know. They're trying to do that, but it's like turning a tanker with regard to ramping up production of artillery ammunition. And the US just haven't been able to provide anything for 4 months. 4 months. And if you were planning on it, on that being there, if you were being told by people, we're in this for as long as it takes, we're going to give you this, yeah, no worries, we'll get it through Congress, you have this money, and then it was like, okay, you haven't got it, well, you have it in a couple of weeks, and then that turns into, okay, maybe next month, then it turns out maybe the 5th of January, and then now we're in the 10th of February, 11th of February for me, and they still don't have it. You know, the Ukrainians are there going, hang on, but you told us we are going to get that before. And so this is just so, it makes me desperately angry. I'm frustrated and angry because it's a really simple war to win. They just need stuff, a bunch of things made out of stuff. Given that, given the rockets and missiles and artillery ammunition that you do actually have sitting in warehouses, how about 20,000 Humvees? They've given a lot of Humvees as well. How about, not 31 Abrams? How about 310 Abrams? And I know this is putting a lot on the US, but the US have the most to be able to give. They have an entire economy based around their military strategy. And this is not, it will be to some degree a drop in the ocean for them in terms of the equipment that the Ukraine need. And, you know, it just needs to be released. Um, Going down to Robotyne, there was some. I heard today from sources I have that there was some items blown up, some Russian, I think, a couple of Russian tanks blown up in a Robotyne area. Anyway, Deep State Map has a rejig in favor of the Ukrainians. Andrew Perpetua has a very small gain for the Russians just west of Robotyne. A tree line there, but not too much to report in that respect. And then we heard the other day about some gains in Krynky, which was, music to my ears. That's been a very tough place there. Well, actually, ISW talked about this, about there being geolocation to confirm that. Oops, sorry, just flew through the ISW there. Yeah, geolocated footage published on the 8th shows that Ukrainian forces recently made marginal confirmed gains in the east of Krynky, which is absolutely fantastic. A Russian strike on a landing crew of a few Marines in Krynky, Kherson, the left bank. So, again, the question might be, as we always say, with regard to what claims Surya Maps makes as a pro-Russian mapper, be careful. People just being in a place doesn't necessarily mean that they control that place. It could just be this is a boat trying to land, they got blown up, and actually they don't control that area. However, uh, you know, Surat Maps doesn't have that under, has that under Russian control, but the other two mappers have that either as a grey zone or under Ukrainian control. Much more likely a grey zone, so it is contested. So I'd say, given that you've got Ukrainians landing there, it almost certainly isn't Russian controlled. So I'd say Surat Maps is wrong there. Whether it is controlled, I think that would be grey zone, which fits in line with what probably the other mappers are saying. Um, anyway, that's enough from me from the front line for today. Please like, subscribe, and share. Really appreciate all your support. It is looking pretty hairy across the front line. It is almost all about a lack of equipment, although you can also argue it is also boots on the ground. They really need that. Please check out my latest article on Only Sky concerning crowdfunding and the support that people like you and I give to the Ukrainian war effort. The article is called Crowdfunding a War Against Autocracy, and that also includes observations that I've made while being out here in Ukraine, having the privilege of being here. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. Take care. Speak soon.